Hey, peoples. Welcome, peoples. I
Hello.
know that there are peoples out there, and it is Monday at 9 o'clock. Well, we should say it's a random Monday at 9 o'clock. So it's time for Keep Crawling with Mike and Brendan. And I am half of your host, Mr. Michael Curtis. And joining me, as always, on one side of me is.
I'm the worst half of the host, Brendan LaSalle, at your service.
So we are here to do what we normally do, which is talk about gaming, talk about popular culture, and hopefully kill an hour or so of time, ours and yours. So I see that there are already people in the chat. So welcome, Dice Station Zebra. Welcome, Tim L. White. Hope you guys are doing well. And here we are for episode number 9 of season 3. Believe it or not, we have made it. We made it a far time, and so let's get the important part out of the way here before we dive into what we're doing. Some of you have noticed that our schedule has been rather erratic lately, and that is partially due because of at the start of every month in this very same time slot, I do Maw of Mike. And the other part is the fact is that Brendan and I are each both individually busy doing other things. When we started the show, it was 2020. The whole world was on lockdown. We discovered that there would not be any conventions. So this was basically Brendan and I chance to hang out, all because we wouldn't see each other on the road, and hopefully kind of raise people's spirits as we got through the coronavirus. And here we are, and the world is somewhat returned to normal. I would say maybe 85%. But the thing is, since then, Brendan and I have taken other responsibilities at Goodman Games. So, unfortunately, a time when all good things must come to an end, and the regular episodes of Keep Crawling with Mike and Brendan are coming to an end. So this, as I said, this is episode 9. We were going to go out on episode 10, which will be our next show. So we'll no longer be broadcasting on an even somewhat regular schedule as a regular it has been this year, but Keep Crawling is not officially dead. As people know, we do shows like our Halloween Spooktacular. We've done New Year's Eve shows. So basically what we're going to do is we were going to cease doing regular programming, but we will still have like kind of after school specials, the occasional special presentation. We'll even get the little spinning special presentation sign that come out and everything from time to time. So basically we're going to do we'll be popping in from now and then, usually around conventions. I will say, although technically our last show is scheduled for the start of October, we will be back at the end of October in our first irregular special presentation appearance of our annual Halloween show. And because of this, we'll be able to do things like we used to do back in the old days, like actually get guests to come on every now and then. In fact,
Exactly.
our Halloween show, we're in the process of confirming our guest whose name may rhyme with Rory Joel. so yeah. So that's it. So sorry, but it's been a fun run and everything. We're not going away for good. It's just we just can't do this kind of even on a pretending to be somewhat regular schedule anymore. We thank you guys very much all for your support, and we hope you do continue to tune in with us when we do make our intermittent appearances now and in the future. So
yeah.
So there we go.
And we're going to be even more dangerous now because we will be harder to predict. So that's going to mean, you know what I'm saying? Watch it. When we do pop up, oh my gosh.
And we feel like we're leaving the Twitch channel in good hands. I think we were the first one of these interview talk shows and everything.
Yeah.
And if you've taken a look at the Twitch schedule recently, there are a lot of shows on it. As only making it this. But we will no longer be one of those on a regular basis. So all right. That out of the way. How you doing, Brett? It's been a while. How you been?
Well, yeah, I've been pretty good. How about yourself? What you been up to?
I've been good, but unlike some people, I didn't have a birthday yesterday. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday was Brendan LaSalle's 27th birthday. He looks fine. He looks well rested, and here we are.
Gen Z, I think. Is that right? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was cool. We had a lovely time. Went up to Athens on Saturday and saw family, saw my folks in the morning, and then
REM.
Yeah. So Pete Buck, he's my cousin. They're all my cousins. Also, the B-52s and Lava Love and Ham One. They're all like my one big group hug.
Mm.
Yeah, and then last night we just had a lovely romantic evening with the missus, and which we capped off with Troll Hunter, which I think any really
Oh,
romantic
oh,
evening needs to
that's a fine movie. That's
Oh boy.
fine.
Oh, we since we've discovered that we've watched it every year, and it never, you know what I mean. I keep making discoveries in, you know what I mean, in the
Right.
background of it. That's a deep movie.
We are talking about the Norwegian movie, right? About
Cool.
okay, right. Because I think there's another Troll Hunter movie, which is actually like an animated movie about little like trolls, like little.
Oh
so,
nah.
so
I have read where they're talking about doing an American version because gosh knows, but it's as far as I know, it's never come up.
the U.S. is lousy with trolls. I can't back out of the driveway in the morning without writing one, right?
He'd be a guy like he'd be like reading internet comments and going, "This one, let's get him."
Right. It's right. It's just a guy going online in forums. I'm after you, right?
You son of a gun, I'll get you.
Maybe I'm thinking of box trolls a while, Lou.
Is it box trolls? All right. Hey Lou, what's up?
So all right, so good. I'm glad you had a good time. So so speaking of popular culture, the theme of tonight's show, considering that from the very beginning, Joe, the show has been about popular culture and how it applies to gaming. And since this time, we are going to basically give a shout out to what we've discovered in 2023. Some picks. So if you're looking for a good new good book to pick up, if you're looking for a new movie to watch, if you're listening to new music to listen to, or new games to play, we might have some recommendations for you. Now, these are all stuff that we discovered in 2023, not stuff that was necessarily released in 2023, which is going to become very obvious once we start listing some of this stuff, because there are some very old things on this, but they were new to us, so maybe they'll be new to you. And if they weren't, you can be all hipster and say, I was into that way before Mike and Brendan were, and all that, and $2 will buy you a cup of coffee. No. So, all right. So let's start off on an intellectual high. Let's start off on a literary bench. Would
Yes.
you like to begin, or would you like me to begin?
Michael, why don't you start us off?
Okay, all right, I will begin. Then my first recommendation, and this is a total Michael Curtis recommendations. Sure, mileage may vary, but recently I discovered a book called After the Ice by Stephen Miffin, I believe his name is. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. And After the Ice is basically it's an overview of human history from 20,000 BC to 5,000 BC. It literally begins at the last glacial maximum, at the time when the ice had gotten as far as it was ever going to get for now, and has started to recede. And it is very well done, because it talks about almost all of the continents. They leave out Antarctica for obvious reasons, but basically talks about how life was developing from 20,000 BC to 5,000 BC. So it's like late Paleolithic through the Mesolithic, and basically ends once like the Neolithic people start knocking on the door and say, "Hey, we've got farming." At that point, it's just like, okay. So it's it's very well researched, but it is written for the layman. You do not have to have a background in archaeology or anthropology, and the writer does a very good job of bringing like daily life to kind of gives you a look at like what people were doing, hanging around the village at 5,000 BC. So if you're doing something like running something set in the forlorn north, or planning to do Frozen in Time anytime soon, this is a great book to kind of give you a feeling for it. So, I mean, it covers everywhere from the kind of Middle East through Europe to Australia to Asia, Africa, North America. So no matter where you're set, it's awesome, worthwhile to check it out. So highly recommend After the Ice, Stephen Miffin, overview of human history, 20,000, 5,000 BC. That's it. So there's your education here for the evening. So, Brendan, what do you got? What do you got to lay it on us?
Go check it out. All right, so mine is a semi-modern fantasy novel, alternate history, my kind of thing, and it is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I will register as one of the books that helped me get through this year. It is a fantastic book. It's fantasy. It takes place during the Napoleonic Wars in England, and in this reality, magic was real. It was a true thing which existed and had been going on for years. And at this point, people have lost it. And then out of nowhere, two people who are able to once again do practical magic, like emerge and sort of get themselves involved in the government, in the history. They get involved with the war with Napoleon, and at first they're the closest of allies, and then they split ways, and it becomes a story about their conflict as each one's different philosophy of how magic works sort of works against the other. It's a fantastic book, and I really love the as far as like world building goes, and as far as like how like the how their magic system works. It really like it's subtly interwoven throughout the book, but I think it's absolutely wonderful. If you're into fantasy and you're into this kind of creator, like if you're into modern fantasy, urban fantasy, whatever you want to call it, I recommend it highly. I think it's a fantastic fantastic book. I was desperate for a sequel. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Like at this point, I look, I went and did some reading of it so I can say, hey, there's a sequel coming. There's no sequel coming. I found this out today. But definitely check it out. I recommend it.
Yeah, I read that one. I read that some time ago. That was and I do. It's the kind of book that back in like the 80s or 90s there would have been a GURPS supplement for it. It would have been GURPS. Like
so quick,
the
so
whole
quick.
like in depth. Think about how to adapt that for GURPS system and everything. They shot a miniseries of it, which I believe is on Netflix, and I saw that. And it had been a while since I read the book, and I saw the miniseries, but I remember enjoying the miniseries as much as I remember the book. So yeah.
Sweet.
So if you don't have time to read the book, you can always cram the miniseries. I think it's like 6 or 8 episodes on believe it was Netflix, or at least it used to be on Netflix, but who knows? Who knows what's going on with the street? They might have deleted their library or something, and now it only exists.
It may never exist anymore. Yes.
With all the Doctor Who episodes in like an African, like a Nigerian, television studio somewhere on Betamax. All right. So speaking of going back, but going forward, my next one is going to be this is a name that I've heard often, but it is an author who I've not been exposed to except for this year, and it's an era of that I intend to make up for. I have just recently, actually just last month, I finished up Triplanetary by E. Doc Smith. That name, E. Doc Smith, is one of he's basically the grandfather of space opera. And I believe this was what you call a fix-up novel. He wrote this, there was actually I think 3 short stories or 4 short stories that he eventually crammed together into one novel. And this is, although it was not written, the first one, this is the first of the Lensman series. Have you ever heard of the Lensman by E. Doc Smith? It is classic 1930s space opera, and it is delightful. I mean, it is, of course, it's out of date entirely because this was written before we even had satellites, let alone had a grasp of what space travel is. So it's nothing but square jawed adventuring types traveling through the cosmos, punching the occasional alien in the face. And you know what? Sometimes that's just a lot of fun. I mean, so it's Triplanetary. It's that's kind of like it's a very strange beginning because it actually starts, I think, during the time of Atlantis. And there's this very whole big backstory about, basically a war for the universe. And then eventually, once you kind of get past the open chapter, then the story actually gets going. But, it's a heck of a lot of fun. It's, it's, ray guns. And I mean, E. Doc Smith, he never met a planet he didn't mind destroying. So I mean, it is classic old school space opera. So, if you want to read where tractor beams came from, Triplanetary, all the stuff that we take for granted here in our Ahsoka, Mandalorian present, you can find the seas too in E. Doc Smith. So Triplanetary, I will report in after I read the rest of the Lensman series. I have the next one, First Lensman, on my desk. So
has there ever been an adaptation of that book series?
Speaking of which, there was a GURPS Lensman. Thinking of all things eventually have to be a GURPS supplement. I was not into it because I really didn't know what Lensman was back. It sounds really weird. But apparently, if for those of you who are nerdy enough, apparently although there's been some claim that that wasn't the case, later writers working on the series basically introduced stuff. But the Lensman has a lot of similarities to the Green Lantern Corps. So they're basically like, like space champions who are given a magical, like not magical, a high tech alien artifact, which is the lens, and then they go about doing stuff. So and I've heard, although the original creator of Green Lantern said no, I wasn't aware of the Lensman stuff. The later writer said, oh yeah, we know the Lensman stuff. We love it. In fact, one of the characters in Green Lantern is named after X and X character. So
Very cool.
all right.
All right. Okay. So this is one that I read early on in the year. I think Lori got it for Christmas, and then I read it after her. But that is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, which is an excellent another urban fantasy, another modern fantasy. The premise of the novel, which is supposed to be the first one of a 3-book series, and the other 2 aren't out yet. But the premise of the novel is that cities gestate like living beings, and at a certain point they come into their existence and actually become a sentient thing. So across the world there are all of these cities, London and Sao Paulo, that have already gone through this and now have this little like a living avatar that is sort of represents them, as this city is now like a it's an actual, it's going beyond just a place where a whole lot of people live, and is now an organism. So this is the crucial moment for New York City, when New York City is about to expand and become actually come into its own. But there's the enemy, the avatar of the forces that are trying to sort of take it over and control it, kind of like a virus, led by an avatar called the Woman in White, is acting against them. So these 5 avatars pop up and slowly begin to make contact, one representing each of the different boroughs. They're all really interesting, and they kind of have city powers. They're able to draw on things like traffic and art and music and use those against each other. So they have these colossal battles that take place across the city, sort of done in magical terms. It's really exceptional, very, very beautifully written, and I don't know, I'm really enjoying it. It's of the things that I read this started this year, it gets my highest recommendation. It's really, really, really cool.
That sounds good, and especially if it's all about New York City's strive for sentience, then I would definitely have to check it out. So
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And my pet theory is that the bad guys are kind of like gentrification. You know what I mean? It's sort of like it's like but I recommend it, and it's I said check it out. It's good. It's making me happy.
I will put it on my Amazon wish list after the show is over. So
absolutely.
If you have an affiliate link, I will put it. So you get a penny.
All right, Mike. What is your third literary choice?
And final one is this is a book that had been on kind of like Triplanetary and E.E. Ducksmith. It was kind of a name. Well, it's actually a title which had been on my radar for a while, and I hadn't gotten around to reading it. Although actually, I think I own 3 of the 4 novels of it. I think I bought 2 of them through the Wizardarium. I think I got them through Dieter's bookstore and everything else. So helps nice. the Goodman Games crowd. But I grabbed it on a whim when I was flying out to Gen Con, and I pretty much finished it on the flight. It was one of those. It's like I had, between the layover and the airport and everything. And this is a name which is no stranger to those of you who are Appendix N fans. This is Michael Moorcock's The Final Program, and this is, of course, is the quite famous. This is the one of the Jerry Cornelius stories. And it's a story. I knew Jerry Cornelius character, who was kind of like. He's kind of like the more serious and more psychedelic, Austin Powers. He's not a secret agent, but he's he is a force in and of himself in kind of swinging London, in like an alternate swinging London. And he is definitely one of the aspects of the Eternal Champion. Rather than a sword, he has a needle gun. Which is again another thing. Is like, where did the needle gun came from? Which involved a deep dive, and it's all about a kind of quest for the final program, which is a computer program which will solve all the world's problems. And it's typical Michael Moorcock. So, well, depending on what you like about Michael Moorcock, you may find all of it present, or if you hate Michael Moorcock, you might find all of it present. So it's actually part of in retrospect, part of the plot reminded me very much the City Under Autumn Stars, I think is the name of it. But it's one of the Van, I forget the last name, one of the other ones. Yes, Hawkwind's Needle Gun Song is actually, thanks to Jerry Cornelius. So yeah, I mean, like I said, easy read. You can do it in a day if you were not disturbed. And I look forward to reading the other three: The English Assassin, The Cure for Cancer, and the fourth one whose name escapes me at this point. But awesome, really cool. If all of you have been experienced to is Michael Moorcock's Elric, and you are in for something different, I heartily suggest The Final Program by Michael Moorcock, which is kind of the first one. The other three can be read in any order because a ongoing plot is not apparently Mike's strong point with these. Right. So Brendan, your final review, your final recommendation.
This one's a bit of a cheat because I had read this before, but I did it on audiobook, and I've actually read it this year for the first time.
No.
I'm out.
That books we read. Books we read.
I know. Well, no, I did it for this time. So it's Guards by Terry Pratchett. Everybody knows that I'm a huge fan of the Discworld books. There are still a few like Discworld books that I haven't read yet, and I'm like slowly I like having them to look forward to because there will be, unfortunately, no more new Discworld books as Terry Pratchett has gone on and made that final pass with his buddy Death. But it's excellent. You get to see it's really the story of Ankh-Morpork. You see that this on the Discworld, Ankh-Morpork is right there in the center. It's proud Ankh and pestilent Morpork together. The Night Watch, the citizens, the people who are a part of that, they're kind of a joke. It's a bunch of alcoholics and miscontents who aren't really doing their job very well. They get a shot of new blood with somebody who joins the force from outsider, a clean-cut person who has a sword that is very definitely not magical. And they, together they sort of like, band together, sort of like re-find their purpose and defend the city against a horrific magical threat, which they arrest. And it's hilarious, and you should read it.
Didn't they all? I think didn't they also make a Netflix series based on this?
They made something.
Oh, it's okay. It's it was. I know that look. You did not enjoy that.
Let me just in case anyone's watching from BBC or whoever. Now you can modernize it. You can change big aspects of all the other characters. Completely cool. But what you can't do is you can't take Terry Pratchett and make it not funny.
Oh, no, they actually did they attempt and just
no, they made it. It was like gritty and urban, and like it had some absurd moments, but Terry Pratchett's all about the language, all about the philosophy. They're such joyful books because they're very rare are the books that you actually laugh out loud while you're reading them. And I find that again and again and again with Pratchett, and they did that. Some of the movies are very decent. There's the movie they did of The Hogfather. We watch that every year. It's great and funny, and keeps all the stuff intact. And I was actually very excited. I love the idea of a modernized version of Ankh-Morpork. Ankh-Morpork really it's and the Terry Pratchett books in general. The biggest influence on all of those is Lankhmar. Mm-hmm. And the early ones really are a parody of Firefly and the Grey Mouse or in Lankhmar, almost like directly, and the city is 10,000 smokes. And so it's very doable. And I was super cool. Oh, we're going to modernize it. We'll change this and do this. Just do it up. But you got to respect the intent, and you have to respect the integrity of the man's. He used humor to tell his stories, and they did not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It happens to the best of them. No.
I know. Hurt my heart though. I wanted to love that. I wanted to love that so hard.
I had the same feeling about Highlander too. And speaking of bad movies, Clay Lilford, yes, I do know that there is the Final Program movie. I have not watched it. I have suspected that it's not very good, and you can tell that by it's actually in my watch list. It's down in like it's in the bad section. It's like if you're going through it, it's literally to be watched. Barbarella, the Final Program, the Green Slime. So there's a weekend. There's a weekend. Just we got nothing better to do. Like,
Oh,
all right.
all
It's
right.
really boring. I don't know. I have been bored by last, so I might not be surprised. All right. All right. Okay, well, actually, that's a great segue into movies.
Yes.
Because we've got some movies as well to recommend. That's our recommendation for books for 2023. We will not be publishing these on our list on Goodreads. So either take notes or or listen to this in the car or something. Get somebody else to buy these books for you if you're interested.
Stop me in the hallway in the lodge. I'll just tell you again. It's cool.
Yeah, Green Flag has one of the best theme songs of all time. If actually I'm looking for it on 45, which has the Green Slime theme song and the Beware the Blob on the other side. That's
I know that one.
yeah. It leaps and creeps and all right, all right. So let us dive into the world of high and low and medium cinema and discuss stuff which is good for you to watch. And I think I should go first because I think I have slightly more than you in this case.
By all
So
means.
at least this way,
Yes.
I will start and then we will interwaste, and I will most likely finish up. So, all right. So
Okay.
with that case, I am going to begin with a documentary which I saw not too long ago, although it dates to I believe 2000. And this is a documentary about William Gibson, who was shot in 1999, and it's called No Maps for the Territories. And I was kind of in a cyberpunk mood, and I heard about this, and I decided I was going to watch it. And I will say it does an excellent job of kind of capturing where humanity was in like late 1990, before 9/11, before coronavirus, and all the rest of it. When we were on, before the millennium struck, before Y2K, although we were getting close to everything, where we, as a developed civilization, had such high hopes for the internet. I mean, it is really, because it was shot during that time period, and William Gibson, who was kind of the spokesperson for although he was a bit of a luddite in the background, he was one of the voices of the time, but it was very for those of you who were either not alive or too young to remember that time, there was a time where we really thought the internet was going to end nations. like we pictured a word for the cyber nomads where you could just travel around the world and work wherever you want to, and God, it was going to be glorious. And now looking back at it with 23 years of hindsight, we're like, oh man, I am so depressed. It's like on the same point we are so on the same point we were so naive. And at the other part, there's part of me is just like, man, we were there. We could have, if we zigged left instead of zigging right, who knows where we'd be as a culture right now. So, I mean, it was
Rough
just,
times.
it was, so it was nice to revisit that, but it was also kind of very melancholy. But if you were not alive during then and you want to see what we were thinking, if you want to make sense of, what your Gen X parents were actually, doing at that time, it's worth checking out. And if you were alive during that time, if you want to kind of take a brief, hour and a half trip back to a time when at least I was feeling about a lot more positive about the future, it was definitely worth checking out. So, No Maps for the Territories, a documentary about William Gibson.
Yeah.
All right, Brendan, what's up with you?
All right. I will say this is one. Julian Burnett recommended this one to me, and it was dead on the money. Check out A Field in England, which is a fantastic and weird movie that I really liked from 2013. So the idea is it's a bunch of army deserters who are all they've all left the army during the Civil War in England, and they're trying to get to an alehouse. So one of them is sure that they know there's a place nearby here where they can get a drink. That's like the whole thing. And as they go across this no man's land field and sort of like are working to survive, they come across this alchemist, and the alchemist winds up taking control of them and sort of like using his abilities to force them to do work for them. He's certain that there is there's hidden things that he needs that are hidden there, trapped there in the field. It's really something, like whenever, I mean, obviously it's 10 years old, but I mean, like, it's, I don't know, it gives you hope for cinema. You know what I mean? It's something that like that weird can still get made, as late as it did. I loved it. I recommend it very much. And I hope, like I said, Julian recommended it to me, saying that it feels like a DCC funnel, even though it's only got 3 guys in it and such. But and I see what he was saying. There's a weird spookiness to it that it's like I said, it's psychological horror. It's definitely worth a recommendation. Definitely worth checking out, I think. So go check out A Field in England. I think it's really, really good. And it's black and white. That's always fun. You know what I mean? So if you haven't seen that one, check it out.
It is fractured storytelling. So there will be times when you will have no idea what is going on. So depending on what your temperature, what your temperament is for that kind of cinema experience, you may not walk away from it. And if you find you do not like it on the first viewing, after you try it, give it a rest and then come back to it another time, because you'll definitely pick up more of what's going on. I forget the last name of the director, but it's Ben somebody or other, and he also did Kill List, which is an amazing movie, and he did a hysterical movie called Sightseers, which is yes, I highly recommend all 3 of them if you have not. But Sightseers is a trip. So all very British, comedy. And Kill List is a movie you should go into knowing nothing about. All right, that's all I'm going to say. It's worthwhile checking out. All right. Speaking of movies worth checking out, I'm digging up one that's going to be older than just 10 years ago. And this is one that came about because the Pluto channel now has a Godzilla channel. They have a dedicated Godzilla, 24 hours of Godzilla all the time. And I have to say, growing up, before there was streaming, before there was even before there was video stores where you go rent movies, I was basically largely dependent on what Channel 9 was showing on drive-through theater. Like, that's where I saw basically all of my Godzilla experience. So it was just whatever they had the rights through. So I had, it's a very scattershot. But now that Pluto has, I have decided that I was going to go back and I was going to watch all of them from the beginning. I'm going to watch the entire Godzilla, the entire series, not just the Toho, even up to the America one. And I have no deadline to this, because it's, every now and then you can't watch too much, Godzilla in a row, because after a while it just becomes monsters screaming at each other. But I saw for the very first time, I saw Mothra versus Godzilla, 1964, and that is a dope movie. You know what? I mean, because it is hardcore. It is. I mean, there is a guy, he gets beat by another person, like not even Godzilla, like some guy, he puts a beating on somebody to the point where like blood coming out of his mouth and everything. I'm like, damn, somebody gets shot. And this is like, and meanwhile, you're not one, not two. you get, I mean. I will have to go. I will have to go and say that I think Mothra is my favorite kaiju at this point, and the reason why, it is the budget kaiju, because you get more giant monster for your money, because you're effectively getting 2 monsters for the cost of one. because you get Caterpillar Mothra, and then Caterpillar Mothra, will eventually become Mothra, and there you go. And and Mothra versus Mothra versus Godzilla. You get 2 Mothras. You get 2 larvae. They team up. And they get Godzilla. And it's also the last Godzilla movie where he is the bad guy. After the next one is a Ghidorah monster from space, and then he's like the good guy again. So this is your last evil Godzilla movie. No, I love it. Had so much fun watching it. If you've not seen Mothra versus Godzilla, you are like me and have been a shuttered child, neglected of some of the great bits of cinema. So it is available on Pluto. You can stream it on demand, watch it in the comfort of your own home, not on a proper widescreen, unfortunately. At least not in my case.
I had to chime in. So my favorite kaiju is Ghidorah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Gamera. Gamera, which I've always loved. But I went in a deep dive this week because I don't know how it came up, but Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, I saw a little bit of that, and I was like, oh yeah, King Caesar, aka King Caesar. What was he even all about? So I went into this. I fell on this wonderful deep dive about King. They call him King Caesar in English, but he's King Caesar, and like he's based on these like good luck food dogs you would have out in front of your house in Okinawa, and I liked it because he did kung fu, and I thought that was
There you go.
Give me that. You know what I'm saying?
We'll say my second favorite is Godzilla vs. Megalon. I watched this last year with my youngest nephew, and there's one scene there's bad guys who want to kidnap a kid, and at one point they kidnap him because the kid is like riding down the street on like his tricycle and everything, and they literally just open the door in his face, like bam, kid goes over and everything, grabs the my little nephew Henry thought that was the funniest thing he ever saw. You know, like, stop the movie because he thought it was so funny watching a little kid on a bike get a door in the face. So the apple don't fall from the tree around the Curtis Orchard. Let's just put it that way.
All right, that's officially on my rewatch list.
Yeah.
When we were kids, you grew up in New York too. Sunday afternoons, Saturday afternoons, you could watch all these things on WPIX.
WOR drive-through theater.
Yep. Oh yeah, God. And
right.
I have it. It's been a minute.
All right. What's up? What you got?
All right. So my next one, so I've always loved samurai movies, and I got one you should check out. Jim Jarmusch's Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai. So this is an American-based samurai film in quotes here. This is not a traditional samurai movie. Forrest Whitaker plays a kind of a hitman assassin that follows the code of the samurai as best he can in a modern setting. He is employed by a bunch of sad sack mobsters. It's like really supposed to be like the decline of organized crime. This is like the last gasps of the system of organized crime that was so prevalent for so long. And Ghost Dog does his thing, and for whatever reason, the higher ups decide he has to go. So it's the rest of the movie them trying to destroy him and take him out. It is beautiful and atmospheric and moody, and it's just the thing, like sometimes you just want to watch the world running down. To me, it really is symbolic of sort of like the old ways sort of like coming to an end and the tragedy of that. So yeah, check it out. People watch more samurai films and definitely watch Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
It's a Jim Jarmusch film too. He wrote and directed that one. So he's kind of if you know his work, it's kind of a little it's a bit of an outlier for him, but it's also very much on point in other ways. So definitely worth checking out. All right. So my pick is going to be this actually covers both movies and music, because this is a little movie called Lords of Chaos. Which I discovered not too long ago, which is a subject matter which I had no interest in, but absolutely love the movie. It is the story of mayhem, or specifically the Norwegian black metal scene, and which was going on in I think it was in the 90s at this point, but I might be doing all this. But it was basically the story behind the church burnings that were going on at that time, and eventually the murder cases which came out of that. It has not Macaulay Culkin, but Macaulay Culkin's brother, whose name forgets me, and then as playing our lead character as the kind of the guitarist in Mayhem, who comes to a bad end. And it very, very entertaining. It actually, I can understand why black metal fans hate it. A lot of them do, because it actually just kind of points the camera at it and says, you want to know something? In retrospect, a lot of you are, I mean, it's like anything. It's like, if you shine a light on that thing you love, and from the outside, you're like, yeah, this is actually really geeky. This is, I mean, you don't expect that with like black metal, but a lot of this is like, okay, all right, he was a black, he was the guitarist in a black metal band whose parents were basically running his, like paying for him to have his record store. I mean, it's I mean, whatever. But definitely where it's not quite a horror movie. It's not quite a thriller, although there are horrific elements of it, most of which are based at least somewhat in reality. So Lords of Chaos, not the feel good movie of the summer, but definitely entertaining. And you learn a little something too, though. All right, Brendan.
Okay, so my next movie is going to be, so this is one, this is like I'm a super Johnny come lately to this, but I loved it. And so there I think we're all just about to hit like, oh my god, another superhero film, can I deal with this? Like, you're like, oh, not this. However, you want to see the actual greatest superhero film adaptation, check out Tank Girl with Lori Petty. um I watched it like 3 times in a row, I don't do that very often. It was so fun and so ridiculous. It's kind of low budge. They some of the scenes are animated. They're in the interior, but if you're not familiar, Tank Girl takes place in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. I guess it's supposed to be in Australia, where basically the water and power company basically controls the
What is something? I actually don't think it takes place in Australia, despite the presence of something. If I recall correctly, the comic book is actually the people want the reason you would expect for it to be in Australia, or actually
yeah.
part, I think, a U.S. government project. So I think it actually might be set in
Is
the
that
United
right?
States. Yeah, if I'm
You know
remembering
what?
correctly.
Yeah, I never, I like comics. I never really read the comics, but I was familiar with the iconography. You know what I'm saying? You always see those
Yeah.
great, all that great Tank Girl art that's out there. Who knew? Anyway, whatever it is, national borders don't mean a lot much to it, but yeah, there's definitely a reason you would think it takes place in Australia. But I guess it makes as much sense that they.
I might be wrong, but that's what I thought. That's one of the reasons why they don't really lean into any attempt to be Australian at all.
No, it's not really. Yeah, it really feels like it's of nowhere. I mean, some of the actors sound British, some of them definitely sound American.
well,
It's got Ice-T.
one of them is Malcolm McDowell, so of course he's going to sound British,
You know what
and
I'm saying?
of course, one of the kangaroos is Ice-T. So,
Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, there's only he sounds American AF.
mad props to Ice-T, but I really don't. I don't want to try to spend 90 minutes listening to Ice-T doing an Australian accent and accent in kangaroo makeup.
No, I don't think any of us really want that, and I don't think he wants it either. But it brought joy to my heart. It's wonderful. Lori Petty is absolutely, where was her incredible moment? She should have been way bigger because she's so fun and she has so much personality. I'd watch her do absolutely anything. And I loved that show. And see, now that should have a GURPS Tank Girl should absolutely be a thing.
Well, as Luo points out, is that I do remember there was a West End Games put out one of their masterwork games. There was the Tank Girl role playing game. So,
see.
And although I had a couple more lists, we're almost at quarter to the end of the show. So let's dive straight into games right off of the mention of the Tank Girl role playing game. So, do you want to kick this one off?
I absolutely will, but it's reflexive because this is the game I played for the first time with you. It's the Aliens RPG, which I played. Now, okay, was that? This is where it gets fuzzy in my mind. Was that early this year, or was it late last year?
It was at least last year.
Was it really? Was it longer than that?
It's actually been 2 years ago, to be quite honest.
Was it really? Gosh.
Yeah.
I got to play new systems more. I haven't played that's literally one of the last new systems I've learned. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But so sorry, but this is what I'm recommending this year because I literally don't think I've played anything but DCC this year, with exception of with almost. I don't know if I've had any exceptions. I think I've really just played. So all of mine are going to be Silent Legion. I played Silent Legion this year. That's one of my other ones. The Aliens RPG was fantastic. A lot of times these role playing games come out that are based on an intellectual property, and they really just feel like they're like, hey, we'll do an RPG tie-in, and they'll just not pay a whole lot of attention to what comes out of that. And they'll slap something on the cover, and it'll, the cover art, and it'll be, it'll make $1 million.
See the Tank Girl role playing game for the Master.
Dude, see the Ghost Dog role playing game.
They did.
I own that one.
They also had a Lawnmower Man role playing game, but the less we talk about that, the best.
I know, right? Even someone, Indiana Jones, that should have been a sitting duck. You know what I mean? Anyway, but the game is excellent. The mechanic that they use in there it's like the stress nerves mechanic in there is fantastic. Really had a good time playing it. Have played exactly one time with this man over here, hopefully to this side or this side. Yeah. And Was it really? Was it 2 years ago? Really?
Yeah, it was. I was during lockdown, so yeah, so it was before the world talked to it. Yes, there is a Lawnmower Man role. It's by Leading Edge, the same group who brought you the Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula role playing game. If you thought Rollmaster had a lot of tables, wait till you see Leading Edges. I bought the Lawnmower Man just so I could take a look at it. It was like, oh boy, all right. No, that's not a joke. I do not joke about role playing games. So. All right. So the game I discovered this year, actually, when I was at GaryCon, I was going through stuff and I heard about it and I checked it out. It is a game called Public Access, which is sounds like totally my jam. And the thing about Public Access is like in the early, I think the premises of it in the early, like the late 1990s or early 2000s, you were a like a teenager in a small town in like New Mexico, and there was this public access channel that you all remember. And the public access channel has since vanished, but there are stories that the shows that on the public still exist in tapes. And you remember the shows being somewhat odd, somewhat disturbing. So it's kind of it's a little bit of kind of going back and exploring those half memories of your youth. And there's kind of there's a supernatural twinge to it. It reminded me very much of Archive 70, Archive 81. Archive 81, I think it was. Yeah. It's interesting as all heck. I think leans a little bit more into the kind of like, powered by the apocalypse, although it's not powered by the apocalypse, but that sort of kind of new independent kind of game system. So it's not very crunchy at all. But it looks to be a heck of a lot of fun. I've not had a chance to play it yet, but I've been very impressed by just reading through it, and I'm looking forward to running it at some point. So it's gonna be awesome. No. So yeah. All right.
Okay, so again, we're getting low on time, but I'll say Eclipse Phase. Eclipse Phase is my favorite hard SF game. It's the game of post-human role playing. The idea is that people have learned how to upload their personalities into machines and then download them into other bodies, so that your character, can actually, might have different bodies that they use for different things. They have one they just use for zero gravity things. For example, it was really interesting. I the skill system work, I think the premise is really interesting for a hard SF game. It's got the right amount of alien stuff. I thought it was very cool, and I'm always looking for a new, like I said, ever since Traveler, I've been looking for, like, I want a little bit more. I want it to be a little bit crazier and such, and I feel like this really fills that need and scratches that itch for me. So. So yeah, check out Eclipse Phase. It's excellent, and I made a note of remembering who to tell you who wrote it and who made it, but I don't remember, so I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Yeah, I don't know if that's still in production or not. So I don't know.
There's a new version coming out. There's like
okay.
Yeah, so that I haven't played the new version that's coming out, but they are. I don't think I've kickstarted it yet, but I think it's getting ready to come out. Like that's sort of what brought it to my attention again. So,
all right. Okay, my next pick is going to be it's actually literally a game which came out this year, as far as I can, because it was nominated for an Emmy, for an Emmy, not an Emmy, an Emmy, not an Emmy. If it was nominated for an Emmy, that would have been interesting. But this is it's a solo RPG, and it's called Void 1680 AM, and you basically play the role of a disc jockey in your very own AM radio station. And you basically, through use of dice and cards, you determine what genre your radio station is, whether it's pop or conspiracy theory or something like that. So it encourages you to put together your song list for your slot and everything, and then through a series of dice and cards, you get callers and come in, and like the callers themselves is just they may have a problem or something like that, and then it's up to you to kind of role play that situation and how you resolve it. And it's kind of, and so it's with this, and you're building a theme through using your music. And in the world of Spotify, it's one of those things. It's like you probably could do this back in the day, but with, if you have a Spotify account and you have access to basically most every song written, being able to put together like a Spotify playlist and actually listen to that songs, as you're kind of doing it, very, very interesting sort of experience. A little bit different than what maybe the DCC crowd would be interested in necessarily, but if you're open to new things and you ever dreamed about being a disc jockey, your very own AM record, I highly recommend Void 1680 AM. So the buzz around it was well deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's
That sounds fascinating, actually.
it's only like 24 pages. It's a little indie role playing game. So
yeah, that sounds really interesting.
So okay,
yeah, I bought 2 new games this year, but I haven't gotten them yet because they're on Kickstarter. So I haven't gotten any new games for this year.
You got one more game to recommend, Brendan, or should we move on?
You know what? I'm going to pass on my last game thing. Let's move on to music.
Okay. All right. Then I will just quickly say that I've been playing Starfield. I was a little disappointed at first, but after a couple hours into it, it has definitely become the game I was kind of hoping it would be. It's very much me. It's as I had a discussion very briefly with Nacho. It's basically the closest thing we might get to a traveler role-playing game in our time. So yeah, very open, kind of open world. You can decide whether you want to be a space pirate or an explorer. I am totally in the explorer thing right now, and I keep seeing people posting like, "Oh, this awesome event or this cool gun and everything." And I'm like, meanwhile, I'm on some random planet, just walking around like scanning animals, and you'd be like, "Hey, what? Oh, look, you're so. Oh, you're angry." I'm literally like the crocodile hunter. I'm just like going around agitating animals and slowly frying their so it's a heck of a lot of fun, but your enjoyment of it is going to be largely dependent on what you think of like Fallout and Elder Scrolls or something, because it's basically the same mechanics and everything, same stuff. All right, I have not completed it. I anticipate completing it anytime soon, especially with the new DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 dropping like next week.
Wow.
All right, so let's wrap things up then with music. So
all right, cool.
Okay, and you have slightly more, so why don't you go first then?
I will. So I'm going to put one here. I'm going to put this in the chat room here. Okay. So as people who know me know that I'm a hip hop fan from way back, and I'm huge big fan of it. But the older I get, the less I have in common with modern rappers. So I really my hip hop starts at about like 79, and like for the most part mid 90s is about as far as I go. There are very few modern rappers I listen to, with some exceptions, but I'm really into nerdcore, and I wanted to share my favorite nerdcore rappers with you, 2Die6, and I put a link to their Bandcamp page in the music. Trigger warning, these guys are very adult. You better like fart jokes and similar, because there's a lot of that kind of thing on there. But these are very hardcore gaming nerds. They do wacky songs. They have a song about deciding to go and pick a fight with the actual moon and taking moon jujitsu classes to go and do that. They really touch. They take a very strange look at a lot of geek, like geek properties and geek interest stuff. So it's a DJ Stuck Down a Mineshaft and Cliff B. I knew about him before, but this is the year that I finally got the one. I actually made a point of checking out. I wanted to recommend one out. The album I got this year was You Can't Have Just One, and where I kind of always knew about him. You Can't Have Just One is the album of this year that I recommend. And that has been my summer. I actually have it on CD, but been in the car all summer. And it's weird. It's strangely inappropriate, but boy, is it fun.
Like
boy,
this show.
like this show. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I recommend. They're just too cool, too funny, too hilarious. So check them out.
All right. I'm going to recommend a solo performer by the name of Runehild. And Runehild is originally French, but I believe she now lives in the hinterlands of Sweden, and she kind of lives off the grid. She kind of like a little self-sufficient in her cabin with her partner, and she records very ethereal music. A lot of it inspired kind of by Norse mythology and such. And so like the lyrics aren't always in English, some of them are, but a lot of them are in Swedish or or Old Norse. I kind of discovered her by being a fan of Halung, and kind of they travel the same circuits and everything, and just started listening to it, and it's really good writing music for me because since the lyrics are not in a language that I am fluent in, I can I don't get caught up in them, and I can just kind of absorb the sound in it. And it's also very good because as far as I've been able to tell, she's not a Nazi. Which is always a danger anytime you listen to anything Viking inspired. There's definitely some
Yeah.
really cool stuff out there, but you have to be careful. You have to tread carefully. So
Yeah.
I've been enjoying. She's got about I think five or six albums now, and she's very into like the healing power of music. In fact, I think her last album was called Wounded Healer, and it's all very much kind of very very hippy dippy. And I'm cool with that. So really enjoy her stuff. She's
Me
all on
too.
Spotify too, so you can check her out. If you're on there
Yeah.
and listen to her stuff. And she does some awesome photography of her little house out in the middle of nowhere, like mist rising from the marsh that just outside her door, and all the rest of her stuff.
Yeah.
So I discovered her this year, and I've been very happy with that discovery.
Yeah. And I had to point out that I saw this list this morning, really looked at it this morning, getting ready for the show, and I'm like, oh, I'll check this out. And I've been listening to that the one she has on YouTube. I've been listening to it for most of the afternoon. It's really cool.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely a little hippy dippy, but nothing wrong with that. I think it's beautiful and worth a listen. Absolutely worth a listen. So check it out.
All right, what you got, man?
All right, so I'm gonna
I think we
say
just have enough time to wrap this out.
yes. Okay, then I'm going with one of my bands from this year, the Rainbow Girls, who I discovered this year. They do a lot of acoustic covers of like songs from the 70s and 80s. I first heard them. They did a cover of Rough John's, which I think is John Prine, I think.
Is this like the Indigo Girls with like six more members, so they have the entire split of the rainbow?
No, there's only three of them, but they're from California. They're really great. They have a couple of originals. Their originals are really fun. They're very talented. They're one of those, to me, they're a YouTube band. Like, I only discovered them because of listening to them on YouTube. I don't really do Spotify, but I've been kind of like had them, they've been one of the bands I've really listened to in heavy rotation, like all year long. And they have a lot of really neat covers. Check out their Helplessly Hoping cover. If you're going to listen to one song by them, I would say their version of Helplessly Hoping will suck you in. But they have an original I love called Can We Keep This Love Alive? Can We Keep This Love Alive? That you should check out. And with 2 minutes left, I say, go, try the record out.
All right. Although I'm slightly disappointed, it's not like an expanded version of the Indigo Girls. I was
sorry, man.
All right. So the last one I'm going to throw down is a band called the Owl Service. And now there are at least two Owl Services out there. One of them which is on Spotify, but this is not them. You can find them on Bandcamp. And let me just read you the description that they have on Bandcamp of it. So the Owl Service, left field, fuzz-fueled garage folk for discerning outsiders. The Owl Service is chiefly a vehicle for Stephen Collins to explore his fascination with the English folk revival, Edwardian occultism, doom metal, DC hardcore, and the great outdoors. So this is like everything Mike likes in one convenient package.
Cool.
They do a lot of, like, as I say, a lot of their stuff is inspired by various sources. He's very prolific. I think he's just every now and then I'll get a random band count announcement that there's a new album out. So it's one of those one person session, musicians has like a studio in their place, and occasionally has friends come in and sit in and jam and everything. But I enjoy them highly. But I'm also a big fan of like English folk horror, and there's a lot of overlap between that. Owl Service famously being named after one of the classics of English folk horror, the Owl Service. So definitely worthwhile checking out. I enjoy them well on Bandcamp.
Very cool. Well, we're here almost at the end, Mike.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we want to keep going?
We're here at 9:00. We're here at 10:00, believe it or not. So if you want to mention your last one,
I'll mention my last one. My last band, What's happened to rock and roll? Who's the biggest rock and roll star in 2023? Like, who's really getting down? I don't know who the actual one is, but the rock band I would recommend is Les Butcherettes out of Mexico. Les Butcherettes, led by Terry Genderbender, are an amazing rock band that I think you should check out. I discovered them this year because they did a cover of Have You Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Fall in Love With by the Buzzcocks?
Right.
And it just blew the doors off the dump. I was like, what? But if you go back, they do other cool covers as well. They have a bunch of original albums. I have never seen them live. I haven't seen a live show in, I don't even, since before lockdown, I don't think. No, that's not true. I still, well, hardly any. But check out their concert. They have plenty of concert stuff that you can watch of them on YouTube. Les Butcherette, Terry Genderbender, like every time I see her do her thing, it's like, they have that real rock star feeling of like, oh my God, I'm just blown away by their performance, their magnetism, and the power that they bring to it. So Brandon says, check it out.
I literally thought rock was dead.
Nope. Les Butcherettes, they're here for you.
It's just coming from south of the border. That's all. That's it.
Yep. Had to go south to survive.
We outsourced rock. That's it. That's okay. Every time we outsource rock, it comes back better. That's it.
Right.
So, all right. Well, all right. Well, that takes us basically to the 10 o'clock hour, and that was our picks of multimedia that Brendan and I have discovered in 2023. So, normally we have a sponsor, but you wanted something? We didn't get around to doing that. So This show is sponsored by Brendan and Mike. That's it. Actually, it's sponsored by West End Games, the Masterpiece, Tank Girl. It's brought to you by the Tank Girl and Lawnmower Man role playing game. So that's all right.
Watch for Mike and I's crossover coming this year.
Right.
Tank Girl versus Lensman.
So this is our penultimate episode. So next episode is going to be October 9th, and that is unfortunately and also fortunately at the same time the series finale of Keep Crawling with Mike and Brendan. We have done yeoman's work the past 3 years, but our work here is done, and our other work is basically impeding us from being able to carry this on of the quality that we've been hoping for. So It is not farewell. It is just like you will see us intermittently from time to time as we pop up. As I say, right now we're looking at October 30th as our All Hallows Eve show. So we're still making sure that's okay with various people involved. Make sure that happens. But October 9th will be the regular series finale, and as has been kind of our tradition, it is going to be an Ask Us Anything show. So if you have anything you want to send us on our merry little way, anything you have to force us up against the wall and ask questions, as long as we can answer those questions and we're not prohibited by Joe Goodman firing us for answering those. You can send those questions to, let's see, we usually send them to Brendan. And Brendan, where should they send those to?
Why don't you send those to Brendan at goodman-games.com? I'll put it down in the chat.
All right. So please deluge us with questions to say goodbye for us on the regular series. Questions like, why are you guys so awesome are highly suggested. All right. Well, that's it. It's been a lot of fun, not just this time, but always. And we're going to call it a night until October 9th. So those of you, we look forward to people tuning in to see us off. And if you can't make it on the 9th, well, we'll be popping back up, maybe with special guests on October 30th. But until then, just keep crawling, and we'll catch you around. All right.
Thank you. Love.